Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Ugandan podcast, brought to you by the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance in collaboration with MultiChoice Uganda. And today we are talking about homegrown innovation with global impact. Now, Uganda has one of the youngest populations in the world. I think at last count, 70% were under the age of 18. Imagine that. But these young people are doing big things, innovators, movers and shakers, from buses to the cloud, and not the ones in the sky. We have some amazing guests who have dedicated their lives to revolutionizing the Ugandan digital space. So with me today, I have some rock stars who are moving in the digital space, in the innovator space, in the entrepreneurship space, making real life impact. First, we have engineer Bainomugisha, who is an associate professor at Makerere University in the Department of Computer Sciences. Pearl Gakazi, an entrepreneur and creator of Kolaborate, a digital platform that shows that talent in Uganda is quality as well as quantity. And Ronald Hakiza, founder of Uga Bus, which was successfully acquired, and now founder of Vestify. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us today.
Thank you for having us.
But you guys are breaking ground where we didn't even know that Ugandans were breaking ground, to be honest, and it's really impressive. So I've had the privilege of having a conversation with you before we started today. And I would like to start with you, Pearl. Ladies first. Not on purpose, but kind of. So Kolaborate helps talent creators connect with people who are offering jobs, people who are seeking quality, skilled talent. What gap are you trying to fill by making it global? Why not just stop here?
So I think for people to appreciate what we're trying to solve, I'll begin with how the idea was incepted.
Please.
It will give us a lot more context. So Kolaborate is, as you hear it, is what it's meant to mean, but there is a play on the words. So kola, mu Luganda kwekola emirimu, right?
Yes.
Exactly. And collaboration, to collaborate, is essentially working together. Yes. And we genuinely believe the future of work is going to be more collaborative than any other style that we've known in the past. Mm-hmm. And I would say for any employer listening right now and future employers, we might begin shifting our narrative or understanding of what it means to work with certain groups, especially certain type of generations. Right. And my observation is that in the future, there's going to be a lot of working with as opposed to working for, even if someone is your employee. Anyway, I digress. So it's very important that we appreciate how this journey came about. When we were building the Prism agency, one of the marketing agencies on the market that are doing reasonably decent work for some organizations. Mm-hmm. When we started it, we were hiring many young people. But then we realized in hiring them, if any of us knows something about the marketing space, projects usually go on for maybe 6 months, sometimes longer, but 3, 4 months, 6 months.
Generally short term.
Yeah, usually, yes. Yeah. So you're going to hire these young people. Some of them, this is probably their first job. You train them, you skill them, they're eager to impress, eager to get an opportunity to express themselves. And when they get this job, 6 months down the road, the project is done. So obviously, you're going to dissolve that team, and now you have young people whose hopes you'd risen high, but now they don't have a job. So what happens next? So Kolaborate started as a spin-off of a platform that could absorb those young people we've worked with for the 4, 5, 6 months, so that any other marketing agency or any employer out there looking for talent in the marketing space can literally find them on that platform. But then we realized that the problem we're solving for as the Prism agency is actually way, way bigger than what we had witnessed internally as young people getting a job and they don't have any other job. So for continuity purposes, we decided to start that platform, Kolaborate. And I like that you started with some statistics. Those statistics are very scary, but they can also be an asset to the nation, right? Mm-hmm. So in creating the platform, we essentially gave young people the opportunity to work with different employers, not only in Uganda, but around the world. But to pivot to your question, why the rest of the world?
Yes.
So our economies are growing. In fact, I think the last time I read, you could correct me, Uganda is one of the fastest growing economies in Eastern Africa.
And one of the most entrepreneurial.
But while those statements are true, they also know the full story. Also, the other part of the story is our population is growing faster than most populations, and actually growing faster than the economy. While the economy is growing fast enough, the younger people, the generations and the young people and the populations are outpacing it. So naturally, you have to find how to put these young brains or these young, innovative young people to work. So instead of us sitting here and counting how many things we can blame, because this is a natural occurrence, having many young people is a natural thing. Ugandans, the fertility rate is higher and things like that. So you can't blame anything per se, right? Yes. So what we did is we recognized that the rest of the world is dealing with the same problem, but in vast. What do I mean? That while Ugandans are dealing with the population growth, the rest of the world is dealing with either an aging population, stagnated population, in worst cases, a declining population. But they need their productivity to stay up. Yes. They need human capital. They need brilliant minds. We have that. So for me, it felt like a fitting marriage, a fitting puzzle to go out there to the world and market our talent and bring these jobs back home for the Ugandans. So essentially, I think the key word we might want to remember, these young people working for organizations around the world, but remotely back home here. So we spend our money in our own economy. We get experience and training that can be retained and utilized to grow more talent in Uganda. So that is essentially why we seek partners around the world to come and consider working with Ugandan talent.
So making us globally competitive, but still locally beneficial.
I love that. That's going to be somewhere on the tagline.
It will be a tagline now. Thank you for that. Now, from creative commerce to clean air and cloud tech. Engineer Bainomugisha, as I found out today that is actually your name. That is so interesting. You've led groundbreaking innovations like AirQO and Crane Cloud. Why that path? I mean, when it comes to cloud technology, that's not something that's typical of the Ugandan space. Why did you charter that path?
Yeah, thank you. Once again, my name is Engineer Bainomugisha. I'm Professor and Chair of the Department of Computer Science at Makerere University. And I've had the privilege to, learn how technology works. And I've also had an opportunity over time to experience firsthand some of the most challenging problems. And this, kind of put me at the intersection of problems and technology. And all the different works I have done has been at, that intersection of problems and technology. I strongly believe that, if we harness technology appropriately, we can address some of the, most complex problems. And that brings me to AirQO. So AirQO, in brief, at AirQO, we exist to ensure that, everyone can breathe clean air. So including the talent Pearl is talking about, we want to ensure that people are healthy, they can live longer life. Right. But you cannot be healthy if you're breathing polluted air.
That's true.
Because what we know is that globally, 8.1 million people die because of air pollution-related illnesses. Bringing the figures to Africa and other, developing countries, we contribute the bigger percentage of this figure. And 8 million people, it's a huge number. If you look at Kampala, maybe 3.5 million people, you're talking about more than twice the population of Kampala dying every year globally. So if you are a city like Kampala, knowing that, you need cleaner air for the citizens or the people who are in the city, how do you tackle this problem? So that's how we created AirQO. One, to make it possible for people to actually understand, quantify the quality of air they breathe in. Because air quality, it's not something you can, if you go outside, you might say air quality is clean. But actually, if you pull out our app, you'll be surprised. I was talking to Hakiza just a few moments ago, and he was telling me he was in Tienda some time back, and he looked at the app. He thought it was clean, but then the app is saying it's red. So, really being able to see the invisible is one of the reasons, created AirQO. But most importantly, trying to identify a problem that potentially impacts on everyone.
Yes.
Everyone needs air. and polluted air affects everyone. So with Airco, we're potentially trying to see how do we make everyone healthy, and not only people, even animals, plants, and so on.
The environment as a whole.
Yeah, so this really was a big drive behind, Airco. And in terms of where Airco is now, basically Airco, we build hardware in the lab at the university. We have a hardware manufacturing lab where we design, circuitry. We do the, sensor components. We do the housing, and then we, package this and deploy them. This technology is widely used in Kampala, and also has been already deployed outside Uganda. We are currently in 15 African cities on the continent, potentially enabling over 60 million people being able to tell or quantify the quality of air they breathe in. So that's Airco in terms of the focus. But the other fundamental part of Airco actually being in the university is that to build the talent that Paul is talking about, you have to be able to practically inform the training. And having entities like Airco, it means that we can be able to demonstrate how we can build hardware, how we can build software, and deploy these systems in practice. So it's been also very important in skilling our students at the university. To Crane Cloud, which also you mentioned about, a bit of a similar, challenge. Like, as you know now, a lot of our, services, everything you can think about is largely driving by computers. But this, for things to happen, if you are using WhatsApp or any other technology, every time you do something, there's a computer somewhere that has to process that message and do it. But if I send you a message now, the high chances like my message will first go to a server in Europe
Yes.
and come back to you,
Right.
we just seated next to each other. So if you look at the statistics in terms of the content we consume in Uganda, you find that actually a lot of the content is hosted out of the country.
Yes.
But this has many challenges with it. First of all, it's very expensive to access the content. It's, costly. The user experience is poor. So one of the things we were thinking about at the time was, one thing is that the AWSs and the Googles are unlikely to set up here because it's difficult to run a stable cloud system in our environment here. We have some challenges around infrastructure, internet, electricity, and so on. So how do you actually build a reliable cloud system in a setting like this? And one of the things we've been trying to do is to, build a technology to actually demonstrate that if you want to build a cloud system in a setting like Uganda, this is how you do it. And then once we do it, then we can now enable many innovators to actually want to, launch their products quickly. Yes. They can just sign up on Crane Cloud and deploy their services. And also most of the users, at least initial users, are likely to be in Uganda. So that means that also the user experience and the latency is much improved. And we make it easy for everyone to consume cloud services. But most importantly also, we're also setting up as a country. We don't want to set up as technology consumers. Yes. I think typically if you have technologies like cloud, AI, and others, I think we have a choice as a country. Want to be consumers or do we want to be producers? We cannot produce or create technology if we don't understand how it works. We can set up to consume AWS and Google GCP, but if we don't really know how it works, then we're going to be set up as consumers for a long term. So the other aspect Crane Cloud has also been doing is supporting our educational ecosystem. Like we have, many students who are interning at Crane Cloud, and they experience firsthand how do you actually build a cloud system, right from the hardware to the user-facing abstractions to enable cloud services. So
which also further speaks into the skilling component
exactly,
as well. So
exactly.
it's a 360 approach. I appreciate that. So from the cloud to the coach. Ronald Hakiza, very famously the founder of Uga Bus. I would have asked how has it been received by Ugandans, but you shared before that it has been acquired, so I'd say it has been received well. But I want to ask maybe what sparked the idea of revolutionizing the way that Ugandans move.
Thank you so much. So Uga Bus, I think I should be one of the few people who decided to solve the hard problems. And the first problem was transportation. So this particular time, I'm traveling to Kisoro. I can't book a bus on time. I reach the bus park and all the buses are booked out. So while I'm at the bus park, a gentleman walks up to me and says, if you want to travel, I have a ticket. And if you add 10,000 Uganda shillings, I can give you this ticket. So I'm like, so why don't you want to travel? And the guy says, no, I just wanted to travel, but I've canceled my trip. So I'm selling the ticket. So because I was going to attend a burial, to me, I quickly paid the guy and jump onto the bus. So, there's a process called inspecting bus tickets. Mm-hmm. So this inspector comes and he's inspecting tickets and then he tells me, hey, the ticket you have is fake. And I'm like, what do you mean it is fake? He said, check your neighbors and see. And indeed, I checked my neighbors and the ticket is actually fake. So he tells me, you either get off the bus or pay an extra 30,000 for the ticket.
On top of the 10,000 that you already
on top of the 40,000 I've already paid. On top of the 40,000. So we're in the middle of nowhere. Buses to Kisoro travel at night. Mm-hmm. I can't get off the bus. So I pay the guy and I reach Kisoro. So when I come back to Kampala, I promise myself that I can actually go back to the bus park and find this guy.
He's probably scamming
someone else. So I can find him. So I go to the bus park. I'll start looking for the guy. And people tell me, you're wasting time. This happens every day. You're not the first person to lose money, so just go home and sleep. And, I'm fresh from the university. I've just attended a program called YALI, and I've already understood that actually businesses solve problems. So I tell myself, if people are being scammed while buying bus tickets, why are they being scammed? Then I realized that the reason I had not booked the bus on time was because I had to physically go to the bus station, buy a ticket, and then come back, do whatever I'm doing, and then go back. That's back and forth. So I decide at that time that I'm going to start selling tickets, not on an app, not on a website, but through a phone call. So I start posting on Facebook and telling everyone that if you want to book a bus ticket, call me. But then 5 months later, I've sold 600 bus tickets and I can no longer pick calls. I mean, the calls are so many.
Yes.
And then at that time, I realized there is Uber. That is 2016. Uber has just entered the market. They're on billboards. They're pumping so much money. And I tell myself, if people are actually ordering a taxi on an app, people might actually buy a ticket on an app, buy a bus ticket on an app.
Right.
Then the next day I see Jumia selling, it was I think Hello Food, selling food on an app. And I'm like, hey, this is also possible. So I'm like, now we can sell bus tickets on an app. So we quickly put together an app. It was so average, really average, but it solved the problem. People could buy bus tickets online. And we started selling bus tickets online, and then we called it Uga Bus. And that was not the most revolutionary thing. What was revolutionary was the agent network. So we realized that to sell bus tickets, we had to build a network of agents within the bus parks.
Okay.
Interestingly, whenever you bought a ticket, there was a gentleman at the bus park who would manually buy the ticket. Mm-hmm. Somehow it's so interesting. Like, I'm sure engineer would understand what I'm talking about. Yeah. The thing about building innovations in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, is that there has to be an infrastructure layer supporting that innovation. And to us, it was the agent network. And I see a lot of people my age building apps and they are offline. I mean, they don't have an offline system. And I'm like, but how is this going to work? We've seen Jumia has to rely on a network of riders delivering these things. Mm-hmm. So to us, it was the agent network. Whenever you bought a ticket, there was a guy who would physically buy that bus ticket. When you reach the bus park, this guy would walk up to you, give you the ticket, take you to the bus, show you your seat, and make sure you arrive safely. Mm-hmm. You get it. And this agent network was everything to us, and it informed the entire acquisition. if anyone is going to acquire an innovation, I mean, an app can be built by anyone.
Yes.
What made Uga Bus powerful was the agent network. And I've never told this to anyone. I'm saying it for the first time. That actually the beauty about Uga Bus was the agent network that people had to rely on. And then we scaled this to in so many other ways, and it worked perfectly. By the time Uga Bus got acquired, we had sold over 100,000 bus tickets. There are 360,000 people who use buses every single day. That's 360,000 people using a bus.
This was 100,000 tickets over what time span?
Over 5 years.
That is a lot.
Yes. And interestingly, Uga Bus was breaking even. We would sell tickets, get a commission, but also we had rolled out a B2B service where we said buses need to digitize their operations. So it was a way for buses to now fully digitize their operations. So Uga Bus gets acquired in 2021, December, then it becomes trips, and I move on to do other things. Now, 3 years later, I enter another business called real estate, but specifically apartments, or what we call the condominium apartments. For a very long time, I came to Kampala when I was joining university, and the first problem I faced was where to sleep. You get it? So affordably. I mean, of course it has to be affordable. You don't have money. So you're looking for a place where you can sleep, and you don't have the money, and you can't just be sleeping at relatives' places. You're inconveniencing them. And then I realized that the reason we don't have enough accommodation is because it's financially out of reach for most of us. So now me and my team are rolling out Vestafy, Vestafy, Vestafy.co. The idea of Vestafy is that we fractionalize apartment ownership, and I mean condominium apartments. Now you can own a stake of an apartment. So condominiums is a small, you see when you look at an entire structure of an apartment, it has like about 50 units. So there's what we call the Condominium Act, which allows you to own your 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom unit.
In that building.
It's yours. It has a title. You can even take that title to the bank and get a loan. It's a real title, like the title you get when you buy land.
Yes.
So now, but these apartments are financially out of reach and we can't afford them. So Vestafy is saying, no, you can earn rental income by owning a stake in that apartment with your 1 million. And every month, we will manage this apartment, make sure we extract rental income, and distribute this rental income to everyone who owns a stake in this particular apartment. Okay. So now Pearl can actually own an apartment in Nairobi and Kampala through Vestafy. You get it?
Yes.
So that's pretty simple. To us, we're trying to make sure that accommodation is affordable and good accommodation.
Yes.
For us to think, I always joke that everyone who says that they don't need to construct, when they're doing those videos, they're in a house. So
we all need a roof over our heads.
Even right now, we're in a house. So if you say construction is not important, then why don't you go under a tree and do your video under that tree? You get it. So so Vestafy is a cost savings platform for people to own a stake in condominium apartments and earn like landlords.
Which wasn't in reach for the typical individual
Yes,
Ugandan.
Exactly. It was not in reach for the typical Ugandan. I mean, 150 million, that's the cheapest apartment. Okay, 120 million, that's the cheapest cost. That's the cheapest apartment you can get. Really, that's a lot of money for many of us.
It is.
But now you can own a stake. You can own starting with 1 million using Vestafy.
That's wonderful. Now, I want to talk about building against the odds because all of you are pioneers in your field in one way or another. And back to you, Pearl. Engineer spoke to some of the lacking infrastructure and how we have to rely on things abroad. Hakiza was dealing with scammers who said, go home and sleep, it's fine. Yeah. What were some of the challenges that you faced as you were building Kolaborate?
Just a slight rephrase. What are the challenges I'm facing?
You're facing, yes.
Still facing because the journey is ongoing and there's always new challenges. That's true. By the way, first, let's acknowledge that we are on a national podcast. Very forward-thinking for the government to... I start with that because it's easy to launch into the challenges and where we're struggling. Yes. But it's also very unique, and I speak from a place of experience. It's very unique for governments to lead to be forward thinking in certain areas. For example, creating a platform where we engineer Hakiza, myself can come and share our stories that maybe could inspire a person or two. So for me, I would say, my mom says a problem shared is a problem half solved. So we have a platform and we are sharing our problems, and hopefully we can hear feedback here, how we can improve them. But yes, so I want to look at my problems that I've witnessed or that I've seen, and I'm still seeing from a macro and micro perspective. Okay. So there, just by the geography of where we are at, in itself creates a challenge that a lot of people might not essentially index for. Right. What do I mean? Building a digital platform of Ugandan talent, telling someone, let's even just say telling someone in Sudan, trust me with your project, someone in Uganda is going to deliver it, right? But Sudan might not land the point home. So remember I said that there's a world struggling with a lack of growing population, and we are a world dealing with a growing population, right?
And that is a problem now with so many.
But if you think about it, these worlds we want to buy into our talent, there's already a narrative that they've latched to, a narrative that could be true but is not the entire story. So I start from that macro challenge that it is there's a trust gap. The trust gap begins locally here to convince a Ugandan that your employee could be in Kitgum delivering work for you who's in Kampala. We still have a belief in physically showing up. Sometimes here and there, my team might say I fall culprit to that narrative because it's how we've been trained, right? So from a macro perspective, when you think of it, if I'm pitching to a person in Europe or the Americas, they might not have any biases that are essentially because they are looking at things from an angry point. It's just the information they have. Yes. And the information they have is Uganda is a beautiful place. Uganda, you could go for good safaris. They're hospitable. The food is good. And maybe they have a few hungry people and we're going to send some aid, right? Rarely has that narrative continued to include the type of talent, the quality of talent, the access to talent, the eagerness of these young people to sell themselves or do great work, right? Now, when you're talking to these people, they're hearing something new. They're like, okay, fair enough, we've heard of Uganda, so we're not among those people who have never heard of this place in Africa. But no one has ever walked to us saying that Ugandan talent is good enough to work with. So you're already dealing with a problem that is fairly bigger than you as a company or a person working for this company, right? So there is a narrative challenge. If I bring it back home here, still on a macro perspective, when we speak of digitization or digitalization, and the three of us, I'd love to say we are doing that, right? There's also an assumption to fall back on the thinking that it has cut across every corner, right? So it hasn't. That is a fact. And yes, it hasn't. And while we're doing a lot of work and while we sit here on a platform that is giving us the opportunity to speak more and power to these things, we can also fairly acknowledge that the penetration of internet is still lacking in some areas. Yes. And I would say, well, I think lately we just increased by good percentages, our reach. I think now we are over 60%. I think we're now in 70s. But then now we have a gadget challenge. Remember, the work I'm promising these young people is essentially work that they might need. They will need a computer and an internet connection to and a good computer to do the job, deliver it, and in time.
Yes.
Right? So if that is the situation, then you recognize that those are some of the challenges that you're going to work around. Yeah. Do you mentally prepare your partners at the risk of sounding like you're unserious?
Less professional.
Feeding
into the bias they already have of us.
I love that, right? Yeah. So you're already feeding into a bias that they already held before. So, or are you going to try to create certain work relations where the different people working in different parts of the country? Right. And that's what we're trying to do. Or you have even partners around your region who can then pick up the slack if there is something delayed on a certain part of work that you can't. Yes. So again, an advantage has been laid there, the power of digitalization, though we are talking challenges. But now let me bring it to the micro. The challenges, because I was talking about now what anybody with a platform would naturally go through. At least from a talent perspective, there's the trust aspect, we have the digitization aspect, but then now we have the egg and chicken. Every founder might speak of that who has a digital platform or a marketplace, but I'll speak from a Kolaborate perspective. You always have to decide at some point what you want to focus on. I think Hakiza, we've had this conversation. So Hakiza and I check in with him on some areas. So do you want to pay attention to the supply? Because the supply is your raw material, if you think of it. It's your, the supply in this case, sorry to use the word raw material, but you get the gist. Yes. It is the talent that you are marketing. So one thing for sure, we don't have a shortage of supply. We don't have a quantity challenge. But do we need to improve our quality? I would say yes. But the resources that you have that usually are limited since you're a startup, do you want to focus them on pursuing the demand side, which is the employers who are going to employ these young people? Or do you get these resources and invest them in reskilling these young people so that they are job ready? Do you see? So now you're stuck in the middle of a very important, two important questions, and a decision must be made. So in my opinion, and obviously there's too many ways this could be wrong or right, but in my opinion and observation, focusing on the demand is where you want to begin. Okay. Because we've acknowledged that, yes, the quality might need a bit of fixing here and there, but the quantity is for sure there. But if we didn't have the problem, because this is one of the biggest problems right now in sub-Saharan employment, is if you've been paying attention, the BPO talk, business process outsourcing, is crossing across the continent. Good for us, but also speaks to the challenge of fear we are having, that we have this many young people, but where are the jobs? So the point is, because we know the demand is not readily available, you have to invest seeking it, right? But then you can't assume that because the demand is what is most needed, once you get it, the talent will be readily available to do it, right? So who are the partners on ground, or yourself as a business, what aspects are you doing to improve the quality of this talent when the jobs come around? So for me, I found that chicken and egg to be, right now I speak with a lot of conviction that it's demand, but maybe if you call me back here 2 months or 3 months, I might have a pivot and say, hey, by the way, after this experience, we actually think, focus on the talent, right? Yes. So so that challenge for me, I find it very interesting. Now, another challenge, a good one to have, and Hakiza's touched on it, and I actually got a recommendation from him when we were chatting way earlier on, maybe 2 years ago. So another challenge that we have as people building digitally, we assume our digital products are be all and all. So we assume that I have this platform. One, everybody will understand it. 2, business will come to it. But 3, I can get all users needed for this platform to work by sticking digitally. But I want to say this carefully because someone's experience might be different, but at least there's 2 of us here who can vouch for this. Okay. That you actually cannot forget the traditional approach to doing work. The brick and mortar cannot be forgotten.
There needs to be a physical element to it.
There has to be. Okay. Reaching out to these young people at universities, going to these employers to tell them about your talent, creating communities where people can engage physically and appreciate the differences that they can each contribute to each other. So ideally, you have a platform, a talent marketplace, an employer, ideally on our platform, you could right now have a gig of, say, you need a website, a personal website right now, Anne-Marie. And you're like, you know what? I don't want the stress of looking for different people to give it to me. You go on this platform, you put what you need, which is the website, and you will get 20, 30, 40 people bidding for that job. In theory, that sounds easy and sweet, right?
Right.
But we spoke of the trust aspect. Anne-Marie is here in Kolaborate for the first time. So what if she gets fleeced?
Yes.
So now Kolaborate cannot sit back and assume Anne-Marie will trust Kolaborate to deliver the work. Kolaborate has to go out there, talk to people, the bus analogy. Talk to people, tell them, by the way, you want to build a website. We can be able to manage this process for you, identify the perfect person to do it for you, and yet at the most reasonable price you could get it, yet eliminating all these challenges. Now, if I spoke to you that way, yes, I'm speaking as a representative of Kolaborate, but at least you can put a face to it. So that challenge for me, I think it's an ongoing challenge and not a bad one. I just think appreciating it as part of the process can help you do it more cleanly and acceptingly.
Yes.
Right. So I would say that's some of the challenges that we have seen. One being, the top one being trust on a personal level, not forgetting that the demand side has, both actually demand and supply, has to have a component of on-ground or field-related activation.
Something tangible.
Tangible.
Yes.
Yes.
And now that Pearl and Ronald are speaking more on a platform side, engineer, your daily interactions as an associate professor at the university in the Department of Computer Sciences, you're dealing with innovators, young innovators. You're skilling them, you're preparing them for real-life applications. What are some of the challenges that you've seen them face? Maybe you're helping them navigate ahead of time so that before they get on to Kolaborate, they're ready to deal with these challenges. What are some of these areas you've seen them struggling with, and how are you helping them?
Yeah, as a university, we are essentially set up to partly, address some of the challenges that Pearl highlighted here. I think everyone is talking about what we call this demographic dividend. That we have this huge population of young people. But I think it's the task is upon us really to ensure that these young people are actually skilled to be able to work. And for many of these, if you look at someone who is joining primary school now, it's a primary one. They probably get into the workforce. How many years are those? 7 plus 6 plus maybe 3. We're talking about 17 or so years ahead getting into the workforce. So that's far ahead in the future. And I think what we're trying to position the education system is then how do we ensure this entire pipeline is set up as complementary, not like go through 13 years and then get to university, then just expect to get everything you need in the 3 years at the university. I think the biggest challenge is that we're seeing now with, of course, first of all is, the field is fast changing. I think that's even for the students going through the university, I think that's really challenging. Like a few years ago, we could teach something and maybe it could be static for many years, but now, technology, if you look at things like generative AI, what is up to date now, it might be out of date tomorrow.
Yes, everything is moving so fast.
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge really for, and I usually tell this to my students, is that as a university student, you should leverage your time at the university to learn how to learn. So once you master that, then I think you are set up for the world. Like you have to learn how to learn from the university, because the technology that exists now in the world, by the time you graduate, they probably will have changed. But you will not leave the university and say, well, I was not taught about this at the university. Because when I was at the university, I was not, there was not extensive, teaching about, let's say, generative AI. This is just a few years old now. But now I cannot say I did not learn generative AI and I can therefore not talk about generative AI or cannot learn generative AI. So I think the ability to self-learn, it's kind of, I think it's core, but it's also challenging in many ways, I think, for the students. I think the other one, the other challenge I would speak to, of course, which we're trying to bridge with all these, innovative approaches, but also linkages to other, stakeholders, government, private sector, and so on, is that, as an ecosystem, we need to have sufficient examples on many of the things that we actually want to push our graduates to. So if we, want to get people to maybe learn how to work remotely, for instance, servicing customers needs someone who is based in another time zone. You'd want that when the student goes for internship, they can experience that. But if they are going to experience how to work remotely, when they get their first job, that's going to be challenging. So and I think here we need to talk more, Pearl, and how do we get some of our students, or people who are still in the education system, experience some of the things that are kind of, looking into the future. Because for sure, the jobs that, maybe are most common now, might be replaced by the things that Pearl is talking about. And I think if we want to build these young people to be future facing, then we need to really expose them to these kind of opportunities. But of course, Pearl is a good example, but we need many, collaborative platforms like your idea. So we need many of these to be able to have a critical mass. If we have, 1,000 students in the university, we cannot all send them to you. So we need to be able to have a critical mass, of like spaces where actually the industry can collaboratively work together with the university to build or train the graduate for the next 10 years. Yeah, so some of the things I could touch on briefly.
Preparing them for real world scenarios. As
Exactly.
opposed to do this, do that, and follow this and follow that.
And learn.
Exactly.
Yes,
But,
learn to learn.
Yeah, but maybe one thing to add there is that in as much as, of course, I talked about technology changing, there are things that are fundamental. Like if you learn math, math is fairly fundamental. It's not changing very fast, but it's core to problem solving. If you learn programming, it's really core to problem solving. If you learn the basics of engineering, everything is there are some core aspects of this. And I think one thing, the students at the university also sometimes struggle to appreciate is also the value of the fundamentals. Sometimes the industry, and I don't blame the industry, but the industry sometimes they want, students who have skills in the technologies today.
Yes.
But not having the foundations to actually be ready to work for the technologies for the future. So it's also challenging if you are into university now. How do you balance the fast-changing technology versus the fundamentals?
Yes.
You might get carried away in learning the technologies now, but the danger with that is that by the time you get out of the university, that's no longer relevant.
Yes.
So also balancing the fundamentals versus the technologies.
For someone to be able to keep up continuously.
Exactly.
You're not just relevant for a moment, but you're actually going to be competitive long term.
Exactly. And also people who can create things, because if you have to be
Yes.
an innovator, you don't just learn about technologies, you have to understand how the technologies work.
So you can keep up with the changes
Exactly.
and adjust and pivot as you need to.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. And thank you for actually saying that, because then it feeds into what you had to do with Uga Bus. With, the fact that it was successfully acquired, it means that you built something that was worth the investment of international bodies. But how were you able to, I don't want to use the word relevant, but let me say your platform was clearly a need for people long term enough for someone to actually invest in it. How were you able to navigate that when it comes to competition? Because Ugandans, like you said, we still have that, I don't want to call it backward thinking, that's a negative connotation. Let me say a traditional approach to life, where we would rather go to the office physically and buy a ticket, even if it's the most inconvenient way to do things. How were you able to position Uga Bus to say, this is more convenient, it's new, but it's going to work for you? And how were you able to remain a need long enough to be acquired?
So I'll first tell you a story, a very simple story that relates to what Pearl is saying. Yesterday, there's a gentleman I've been working with. He really is good at programming. And this gentleman, I think because for the last 2 years, I've not been giving him work. So he decided to start working remotely, and he listed his services on platforms like Fiverr, Upwork, and all that. So we were on a video call, and then he was sharing his screen. So somehow he clicks on the Fiverr tab, and on his Fiverr account, he had $33,000 that he had not yet withdrawn. So I told him, wait, go back to that Fiverr tab. What's that? Then he goes back and he shows me, no, this is money I'm going to withdraw. So in my head, I'm like, wait a minute. You have made 33,000 on Fiverr and
you haven't taken any of it out.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, Hakiza, I do a lot of work for a lot of people, so they pay me through this. So when Pearl talks about Kolaborate, I'm like, this is the thing. We all know here that's a lot of money.
It is.
It's a lot of money. And I can imagine the amount of work this guy has done to be able to earn 33,000. But this guy is in here in Kampala. You get it.
Imagine that.
And I'm also sure that that's a global market he's tapping into. So I understand what Pearl is talking about. Let's go back to Uga Bus. The fundamental thing about Uga Bus is that the problem was actually there. Remember, we first solved it using phone calls. Then from phone calls, we actually brought people to the app. But also, most importantly, is that we went beyond the technology. I always believe the hustle in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, is offline. And honestly, the hustle is actually offline.
Yes.
After we've built very beautiful technologies, after we've built the very amazing apps, websites, and everything, you realize that the highest number of customers we get are actually offline, who then realize that, okay, now I can. So in sub-Saharan Africa, we have this, we are a social population.
Yes.
We are social people. That relationships is something that builds businesses. That is why when you actually order something online and the border guy delivers it, you now develop a relationship with the border guy. So the border guy can start delivering to you, every single day. So Uga Bus every single day aimed at building the relationship with people who are buying bus tickets. For some reason, one of the things we had added into the app was gamification. We wanted people to keep playing a game on the app, not because the game would bring in money, but because we wanted people to keep thinking about Uga Bus, so that when the need is there, they now can use the service we're offering.
Creating top-of-mind awareness, basically.
Yes. And because we didn't have the money for marketing, we were thinking outside the box.
You had to get creative.
Yes. And then when we decided to bring on board the agent network, the agents were these people. When you go to the bus park, you see those guys who pull your shirt? We realized they were a very key factor in our success. So we went to them and said, we are going to give you reflector jackets. We are going to give you everything you needed, because those guys even work at night. So we even gave them shoes. We gave them phones. We gave them, and told them, every time you see a passenger, tell them about Uga Bus. And it worked. Because these guys are with passengers every single day. So they want to talk to them. So we started seeing people, you walk to the bus park to book a ticket, and then all of a sudden this guy tells you, you'll get the ticket cheaper if you buy it on the Uga Bus app. And now the passenger, buys the ticket on the app. And then we started seeing these passengers coming back. And then we started seeing the numbers go up, yet we were not on billboards. We didn't have the money for billboards. So the relationship may either be with a customer, or it may be with that particular person who will make the business work.
Right.
For Kolaborate, one of the things I keep saying is that the people offering the service on Kolaborate are the people who build relationships with the customers, and they will tell them, oh, I'm programming for you, but you want someone to do the logo? No, go and Kolaborate. Get the logo there.
Someone there too.
There's someone there to do the logo, Oh, you want a video? Oh, no, there's someone on Kolaborate to do that. Now, eventually when someone wants cloud services, the person on Kolaborate will tell them, no, there's Crane Cloud.
Yes.
You get it. So it's Africa's market is
Offline.
Yeah, it's offline, and we have to handle it with care, the way you handle a baby. That's why we saw investors pump money into Africa and lose that money. because they were throwing money at a problem that doesn't exist and ignoring the fundamental problem that actually existed. And then the startups that were solving problems from the ground up are still in existence. The startups that were solving problems from the top to bottom vanished. So that's the thing we did at Uga Bus. That's the thing we are doing at Vestafy. At Vestafy, we are saying we will build relationships with everyone who is serving with us. But also, most importantly, we will make sure that our accommodation facilities are extremely nice. That when you sleep at a Vestafy apartment, you will not think of going to a hotel again.
I like that, yeah.
I can tell you that.
Definitely.
And then also, we're also making sure that we deliver the highest return possible to people who are saving with us and making sure that we buy these apartments. And right now we're still delivering up to 17% per annum, but eventually we will deliver even up to 21% per annum. You get it? Because we are solving this the African way.
Yes.
And I loved that Africanista word. It used to ring a bell in my life. Like, these guys are smart. They thought of the Africanista, because this is how Africa works.
Yes.
You get it? So yeah, that's the truth.
As they say, we are African, not Africant.
Yeah. And every time someone says, Hakiza, how can I get my startup acquired? I always tell them, have you solved the fundamental problem? Yes. And then someone will say, but Hakiza, my app is nice. Look at it. And remember, the app is nice. You look at it, it's nice. But then the question is, okay, the app is nice, but is the problem solved? Like this whole thing? Because I can tell you, even if Trips had wanted to compete, they would not beat us.
So they decided, let's buy you out.
And you get it. And I think it will be the same thing with Vestafy. It will be very difficult for people to beat us.
Yeah, I actually thank you for that, because that was going to be my next question to all of you. And now you've given your parting shot for future innovators and entrepreneurs who are hoping to go into the space. If I could also have your parting shot, starting with Pearl, for a young innovator, because I'm going to assume, very boldly so, that Kolaborate also did not have this massive budget to begin with. So someone is watching the Ugandan podcast and they want to enter the space. They also want to maybe not necessarily create the platform that you did, but they want to create something that doesn't exist right now. What would you have to say to them who don't have the means, who don't know necessarily where to start?
That's a very important question. So I want to give a reasonably important response. So first I'll say begin. And I know that's going to sound like that joke of the guy with one feather that now has 70,000 birds. Yeah. So at the risk of sounding like that person, I think I don't know how this will be received, and I would love actually because they're builders. They've built way before me and they're still building. I think people over-prepare. I think there is such thing as over-preparedness. And I genuinely believe if you're ready, then you're late. Right?
Oh,
and
okay.
I think in a world, an engineer spoke of it, in a world that is moving as fast as the world we're living in today, none of us alive has ever witnessed what you're witnessing now. So we are all experiencing the same thing at the same time, as opposed to 50 years ago when things could take a reasonably long time to change. So someone can give you feedback and advice that you could actually follow to the T and you'll be better.
Yes.
But today I could give you advice now and swear down in 10 months, you'd think I wanted you to fail because it's not applicable
anymore. Yes.
Exactly. So I would say, and I know people say, okay, how about funding? How about preparedness? There's so many incubators out there that are free, that are preparing young people to articulate their position, to articulate their dream, giving them even place to begin building. Right. So sometimes a place to begin building, in my context, in this case, digital-related stuff, you need a work desk, you need an internet, and your computer. So, and there is organizations we are aware of that are actually doing that. Even the ICT ministry itself is having programs
like that.
Exactly. Yes. Kolaborate for a year and a half had space at the ICT hub. And we applied for this. So again, there's another thing where we are self-defeating as Ugandans.
Disqualify yourself even before you begin.
You know, but I genuinely think we are living in times where anything can be true. Yes, it's who am I to sit here and say you don't need to know people? But also, why do people know you? Because you could know the best people in the world, but can they trust you in certain aspects of things?
Right.
Yeah, we all know people who walk around with amazing people, but can we say that they are amazing because they walk around with those people?
Or are they successful?
Are they successful because, right?
Affiliation.
Exactly. So all those things, you build them.
Yes.
I want younger people. None of us here is in the average age of a Ugandan is 17 years. That blows my mind every time. So 17 years. So no one here is even close to. But you can imagine how young we are. So if we don't attempt to shift the mindset of young people, we are in for a very scary future. What do I mean? We can't have people who have already thrown in the towel. I can't build because I don't have access to this. Okay, so let's assume you don't have access to funding, which is usually the most common challenge.
Sure.
Yes, but do you have a place you can begin maybe pitching? At the level of Kolaborate that we have grown, we're still young, but also we've grown quite a bit. But we're still offering pilot-based projects because someone doesn't have trust in us yet, but they're willing to try us with a pilot, right? So yes, you're a young person, you don't have funding, but the best funding is revenue funding. The best funding, it won't be grant funding, it won't be VC funding. And don't get me wrong, you need it if you can get it. But sometimes looking at it from the first principles. One, begin. Stop making excuses. Stop looking at why you will fail. Look at, again, take this with a grain of salt because I'm painfully optimistic. I'm a very optimistic person. I'm trying to now practice pragmatic optimism, where now my head is not only in the clouds. I'm still optimistic, but tethered on the ground, right? So I do really acknowledge the space we are building in, and there's so many challenges to point out on. But as a young person, begin. Start. Talk to, my first interaction with Hakiza was a LinkedIn conversation, and now we are friends. He is here with me. I literally texted him and said, Hakiza, I want to take you to coffee. And Hakiza said, okay, this week is not good, next week, let's meet. That's knowledge. The knowledge that I got there helped me build the next levels or levers that I wanted to build. Hakiza was fresh off selling, or rather having Uga Bus acquired. So he had this fresh knowledge. He was eager to teach. He still does. And for me, I realized that small things like those, speaking to people who have seen even worse challenges than you, will make you realize that your challenge is actually you're starting in a better place because people have built in more complicated places. It doesn't mean we're negating or talking down your challenges, but it means that realistically you can begin, right? So begin, join an incubator, and also avoid being a person who becomes, you're like in 20, 30, you only have so many hours. You need to build, you need to test your product, right? So join an incubator or a space that can allow you to practice. Right. One of the places I can confidently speak of is the ICT, and is very, you apply, they assess your ability, they have the assessment, and you're given space to sit and work. Number 3, get a pilot. Do you know how many people are open once you offer something for free?
Everyone, we love free things.
And it's actually, and when you think of it as an entrepreneur, it's even not free, because if you trust how good you are, very likely you're going to get the job.
Sure.
Right? So give a pilot. I was just talking to my sister last night, and I was telling her, one of my first clients, you literally made the introduction. So there is that trust aspect. So you have someone, if you're young, then assuming you have siblings, you have people around you, tell them, listen, I'm not asking you to create, knock the door down for me. Just open it, make an introduction for me. Actually, someone made an introduction for us. Sike made an introduction for you and I, Hakiza. Yes. So speaking of introductions, many people are very eager to make that introduction. But it's now on you to pitch yourself
once the door has been opened just a bit.
Right. So the advice that I'm giving young people might not be the sweetest, but I think it's fair.
It's what they need.
You're rough on the edges. You're young. People will understand. and people will actually hold you by the hand, lead you to your next if you're open to it. So those will be my parting shots.
Thank you for
They're long,
that.
but they're
And speaking of someone who's holding hands every day, what are your words to young innovators who are looking into AI and cloud services?
Well, I think Pearl has said is, start. I was reflecting on that. I think starting is, so I was first talking on other things, not technology. So I've been getting into experimental farming.
Experimental, right?
Yeah, and for like 5 years, I was telling myself I want to plant coffee. And I was planting coffee in my head like for 5 years, but without starting. But recently I said I need to start.
Yeah.
So I think that it's very important to start. Anyways, back to the technology space, which I'm most familiar with than farming. I think, as Hakiza and Pearl already said, I think if you are an innovator, of course, I think the biggest thing is that you must be aiming at solving a problem. I think it's not, you don't just wake up and say, I want to create a startup, but the startup must solve a problem.
There's a need that needs to be addressed.
You must be addressing the need. And the bigger the problem, usually the bigger the potential of the solution. And I usually tell my students, when I go to class, a few weeks ago I was in class again telling my students, I tell them that, look, if you are in this space where you are as privileged as you are, you have access to technology, you have access to, great resources here, we have all this knowledge and all that, and we're willing to share with you. I think in a space we are surrounded by problems. Like every day you wake up, you go to work or you go to any activity, you experience problem on every other moment. Today morning I was stuck in traffic. So I always, tell my students, say that, when you experience problems, complain. You are okay to complain. Like you can experience the problem, observe the problems. What are people complaining about? And you could join them and complain. But as an innovator, don't stop at complaining. We are set up to solve the biggest problems. What is everyone complaining about? What is everyone wish existed but does not exist? And as an innovator, set up to create that and fill that gap. So that would be my biggest message, to start with. Like you must try to be very intentional on every day as you interact with people, as you observe, what are the problems that you could potentially start solving, and then build your solution around that. But of course, building the solution as again, Hakiza and Pearl have already emphasized, it's not sufficient.
Yes.
You need to build a team, to work with you. You need to build, the partnerships.
Very necessary.
But I think before you build a partnership, sometimes, at least in the setting where we are, you need to build a product to demonstrate. And then that usually can help you to, I think it's easier to go to someone and say, here is the idea, here's the prototype. How can we work together? I think usually the prototype helps you to raise the visibility. And when I look at the example of, let's say Crane Cloud, I think when we built the first prototype and we had, one of these former vice president at Microsoft, and he was keen, to say, well, I think this is very interesting to see that Africa is trying to build a cloud technology on its own terms.
Yeah.
And he was, happy to invest in that and grow the team. The same with, Airco. We had to demonstrate, we had to build a product with very few resources. Remember when we started out, we wanted to cover the entire Kampala, but we did not have resources to put sensors everywhere. And, we said, well, we have borders in Kampala.
Let's work with what we have.
If we just put 10 sensors on 10 borders, they are going to reach the entire city, even beyond. And we're surprised.
Sure.
We had some, data points going up to Busia without us asking.
It was just
So, and demonstrating that the potential the technology can work, brought us to big partnerships. We had Google come on board as our partners and many other partners, working with us to be able to grow. So I think, you need to, solve the problem, build a product to demonstrate, build the partnerships, and of course, have the right team as well work with you alongside that. I think from my perspective, of course, I'm a bit biased, but I think the future is around AI.
Yeah.
So I would encourage,
Sure.
I would encourage, innovators to really get interested in building knowledge and skills in AI, because I think there are many things that are being done now that require, human capacity. They are going to be replaced by AI for sure, including generating a podcast like this.
I know.
So I think the more, we get onto this sport and get skilled, I think, to be very helpful for you to, I think the next big innovations are going to be around harnessing, AI. And available to also collaborate. I also been in this space. I am running another nonprofit organization called Sandbad AI, where we are mostly focusing on bringing all Ugandan languages onto language technology, and setting up the future of AI for all Ugandans. And I think there are opportunities there that everyone can harness.
Definitely.
And build a better economy. But also create jobs and opportunities for many young people.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you so much for your time. But before I release you, one quick question. We want to emulate the innovators and the entrepreneurs, but we also want to know what you're listening to. So what is your Ugandan song of the moment? What is the one that it is in your head all the time? Let me start with you, Ronald.
Interesting. Why did we start with this?
I'm still thinking as well.
But honestly, I would say it's called ebinyumo ebyafe twaliyako bye twalya. You get it. Always reminds me that eventually these too shall pass.
Yes.
And and indeed, when you actually look at it correctly, or whatever way you want to look at it, this too eventually passes.
That's true.
Because the other day I needed at least 10 people to launch a startup. Now you'd be shocked at how many we are at Vestafy.
Impressive.
Because now we're so effective, efficient, we're doing things super fast. Yesterday, one of the big language models was not working, and one of the kids, a very young Gen Z, was like, Hakiza, I can't do anything. And I said, you can no longer think because AI is thinking for you. So yeah, it's Ebinyumo Byafe.
What's your song, Pearl?
While he was saying, I'm like, I wish I had a much more intelligent and deep song to share that has a narrative behind it.
No, we
but
just
I'm
want
on
to know what's
vibes
moving
with your
you.
question. So there's a very new song of Elijah.
Chitaka.
Yes, there's a newer song, Live Dawa. I love Dawa. But
Dawa
there's a
was a
newer song where he's playing into an older song.
Echangi.
That's a dope song.
Yeah, I like that one. And Professor, what's your song of choice right now?
I don't have a specific song, unfortunately.
A musician, maybe?
I mean, I've grown up following people like the music of Jose Chameleon and the likes, but no specific songs. I listen to music,
Yeah.
but I don't
put a
pick
name
on
to
specific songs. No. That's not
All
my
right,
thing.
the professor
But
is a chameleon fan.
Maybe the professor could say Nekolera Mali.
But I think for inspirations, I've read books of some of the great innovators like Steve Jobs and the others, and I think I find some of those books really deep in terms of seeing how do you actually build something from nothing to something very big, but also seeing that the journey is actually not usually straight. It's like ups and downs.
Right.
Reading up Steve Jobs, getting fired from Apple, coming back, and then building a very successful company. So I think there are very many. I think the inspirations that they exist in Uganda and outside Uganda. So I would encourage everyone to find inspirations wherever they are.
So your inspiration is in the written word, not so much the music. All the same, we thank you for sharing with us, and thank you so much for your time here on the Ugandan podcast. Please do remember that these people are online. Look them up and look up the amazing innovations that they're creating, because they're making Uganda more digital, more forward thinking, and quite literally changing the way that we do business. So thank you again. This has been the Ugandan podcast. Stay blessed.